interesting because, what I do with the schools, at LA Unified, is I work with these kids, I work with, you might say DACA kids, because, these are, LA Unified is probably what, anybody know what the percentage, it must be at least 70%.
70%.
That's right. This is LA Unified.
70% what though?
70% of the kids are Hispanic.
Okay.
And probably a large number of them are DACA kids.
Oh, brother.
And that's true, and that's just the way it is, that's what we're dealing with. So, I had to come to the conclusion to sort of do what I'm doing, partially because I was so frustrated, like many of you, I was frustrated as to what we could do in our state here in California. We know it's gone to the Democrats and the socialists and the communists, whatever you want to, all those isms. You can say humanism, communism, socialism, Marxism, progressivism, all of those isms. Basically, it's the same thing.
Alcoholism.
Capitalism. That's the only thing they don't, the only ism that they don't like. It's the opposite of capitalism. But it's funny because I talk to the kids all the time about these very principles, and I'm going to give you guys some tips on how I engage these people. I think this is the most difficult part of what a patriot should do in this country today. And Benjamin Rush said that, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. I love the Founding Fathers, and that's one of the things that I think opens a lot of doors for me to talk, especially being a black, being a Negro. I like to use the term Negro. I don't say African American. And, I guess I might not be as black as some other people, so I can use the term Negro. But it's funny because when I talk to the progressives, I talk to the people within the, these teachers, and all of these, just about everybody is a progressive in the school system. All the teachers, the administrators, everybody. I'll tell you more in a minute about some of the episodes that I've had with them. But when I speak to them, they are amazed. They are really amazed at the fact that I am being who I am as a black man, as a Negro, that I am so pro-Founding Fathers. Pro-Founding Fathers. I love the American dream. I love what the American dream really stands for, what the Founding Fathers stand for. I always tell the kids, I said, you want to know the truth about the American dream? Read Dr. King's speech about I Have a Dream. What did he say in that speech? I have a dream that is rooted in the American dream. So I have a dream that is rooted in the American dream. And then he goes on to say what the American dream was to him. And he quotes the Declaration of Independence, the second paragraph. Most people leave out the first paragraph. I don't know why, but I'll get into that too. But the second paragraph, they always start with, we hold these truths to be self-evident. But the Declaration doesn't start there. It starts with, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that we should declare the causes which impel us to the separation. What are we doing when we separate from progressivism, when we separate from humanism, when we separate from Marxism? Are we declaring the causes? I don't think so, not altogether. Some of us know, and you who know me, you've seen my posts, you know what I talk about. You know what my fetish is about America, is that we don't make the case. And I like what one gentleman said earlier about Arthur. This guy's got he's got a spine like this guy's tough. I like Arthur, he's a tough guy. And
I survived Berkeley.
Arthur doesn't bend, Arthur doesn't bend. Wow. These are my heroes here. Arthur and we the people here, Robin, these are my heroes, because they'll come into, I guarantee you, if we had a liberal, if in the black community, and Keith is here, he would probably, Keith, you remember that place over in Inglewood? I guess it's that place. I bet you they wouldn't be afraid to go over there and speak out. Oh, you know that place over in Inglewood?
You've done it before.
I think, I know
with Chanel.
Would be afraid.
I was in Hawthorne.
If we had a team of people that came over there, we had some white conservatives that would come over there, they would.
Just give us the address.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Keith knows where it is. I don't. Okay, very good, very good. But normally, I'm saying this because normally our side doesn't do anything. Our side doesn't, I've been to many Republican meetings all over the place. We have Republican meetings everywhere. And I'm sorry, but they just don't show up. in these really, in the belly of the beast, like these people will. I know they will. And that's what I honor them so much about it. They're not afraid. And you can't be afraid. You know, you're going to have to be strong. And if you think about it, a friend of mine's always said this, our country never, you know, if you think about it all the way from the founding, we've always been outnumbered. The founders were outnumbered. The British, what, 3,000 British soldiers? Trained military men?
Yeah.
Against farmers, against
Common folk.
there you go, with
Yeah.
muskets.
Pitchforks.
And the British had, I'm not sure exactly what type of gun they had, anybody who's a gun expert, I don't know, but I mean, they had a much more advanced type of a weapon, of a rifle. They had a different type of rifle than the muskets. They weren't muskets. The British had a more advanced rifle and gun. So they had the types of guns and ammunition, they had the types of weapons that were more advanced than the commoners. And yet we won. Why do you suppose that is? And same thing with the Civil War. About 700,000, that's the most in our history of men who died in a war. And this was a civil war. South, between North and South, these are Americans fighting Americans, killing Americans. Nobody ever talks about that. You know, nobody ever brings that point up. 700,000 men died as Lincoln looked over Gettysburg and he saw the, you know, the graves. But you think about that for a moment. 700,000 men died. That's more than in World War II. Am I correct? Are you guys correct?
It's more than all the other
All
wars
the wars.
combined.
Look at that. That's incredible.
I thought World War II had more casualties.
No, nope.
What?
No. See, and
casualties
that's more than, you know, World War II, more than Iraq, more than all the rest of them. So that's 700,000 men who died. These are neighbors, fighting neighbors. These are South and North, these are all Americans. And this is what amazes me about that. And so I say, what is the principle that they stood on? The principle was the Declaration principle, the Declaration of Independence. Just bottom line. We've got to take that document and look at it more closely. And even Frederick Douglass, who, when Frederick Douglass met, and when they asked him to speak on occasion, 4th of July, at first he said to a large crowd of whites, he said, I can't celebrate quite the way you celebrate because, you know, my people are still enslaved. That's what he said. But he did say in that same speech, he makes another point. And see, the liberals always bring that part of the speech out. But they don't bring the part of the speech where he said, but we need to look to the doctrine of the Declaration more closely. And he also said that there is no Negro problem. The problem is whether the American people have loyalty enough, patriotism enough to follow or live by their Constitution. And I would say the same thing. Now watch this. I might say a few things today that might get you, I like that. I like to spark people to get a little thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way,
Yeah.
I have 10 constitutions we'll give to you,
Okay.
so you can give to whoever wants
There
one.
you go. You got it.
So,
Yeah, okay, you can hand them out if you like.
You
No
bet
problem.
they did. 700,000
Okay.
lives
You will-
lost.
Actually, you can
because
pass
of
them around if
slavery.
you want.
Yes.
See whoever wants one. So we have, what was that, guys?
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
The founding principles.
Yeah, the founding principles.
Go
Yeah, the
back to
Declaration
that.
of Independence, this document. This is such a great document. And Lincoln one time said that I never had a thought politically that didn't coincide with the Declaration of Independence.
Wow.
I kind of have that same, you know, same mindset. I have the mindset of Lincoln. And because I love what he did to defend the Declaration. And all that he did was defending it. Now, you know, of course he wasn't perfect, none of us are. And one of the things I do say to the people who oppose Donald Trump, President Trump, is I say, well, look at what he's doing. Look at what President Trump is doing. Everything, can you show me anything that he is doing in his policy that doesn't coincide with the Constitution? That's what I ask him. And that's what I think we need to start doing when you engage progressives. That's the part of what I'm going to talk about today, is the importance of engaging people on principles, on principle basis. That's how you shut them down. Every time I go to these meetings, you know, I go with Arthur and I've been with We the People on occasion. I don't get to go to all of them because I do work, you know, so they're basically, oh, and by the way, my beautiful wife is here. You won't see her very much, so I just want to point her out. That's Elizabeth. Anyway, I just want to point her out because you won't see her too much at many of these types of meetings. She works, I could say that she works in the DA's office over in downtown LA. Oh, look at her, it's okay, they don't mind. They're not gonna embarrass you. But she works for Jackie Lacey, and I say that it's important to say that because there are always protesters down there at her, at the place of work. What I tell you, I want to start with a strategy. I want to give you guys a strategy, at least one that I use. And one thing I've learned about it, in the martial arts, I studied martial arts for 50 years. And
I'm a former black belt.
all right.
Northern Challenge, so.
Good.
I would like to hear you.
Okay, well, I studied martial arts for about 50 years. Since I was 12 years old. I'm 62 now. And I've been doing this for a long time. And I can tell because my body feels it. All of the break falls and all the falling and I did some very hard training. So, but that's okay. I'm gonna get a new set of hips though. So it'll work out. But in the meantime, I've developed strategies for using self-defense against people who physically attack you. And so I thought about, wait a minute, let's see, this could roll over into a political or intellectual matter as well as social issues. All of these issues, whether you deal with a bully, whether it's physically or whether it's mentally or intellectually, whether it's socially, whether it's culturally, all of these areas, politically, it's basically working by the same principle. Use the force of the aggressor against them.
Got it.
That's what you have to do. And we call it, I guess I've heard another person call it the Columbo tactic. You guys remember Columbo? Remember?
Yeah.
I got a problem with this. Maybe you can help me out. I mean, I'm not too good at, showing you. I'm not too good at impersonating him. But basically, I have a problem with this, Arthur. I mean, maybe you can help me out on something. I can't figure this out, and I need your help. That works. You get the open door. I do this all the time with teachers. You see, these are teachers who are degreed. I have no degree, guys. I just want to tell you, not even a degree. I don't have a degree in the Constitution or anything, but I study. I study and study and study. So that is what I want to start opening by saying this. Here is an interesting. There's a time. This is in Ecclesiastes, the book of Ecclesiastes in the Bible, chapter 3. It says, "There's a time for every season. Everything." There is a season, a time for every activity under heaven, a time to embrace, a time to turn away, a time to search, a time to quit searching, a time to keep, and a time to throw off. Think about that. Embrace, search, keep, throw off. Embrace, search, keep, and throw off. 4 basic principles right out of Ecclesiastes, the book of wisdom, just for the Proverbs. Now think about that for a minute. What are we embracing as Americans? We embrace the principles of the founders. What are we searching? We're searching the principles of the founders, the founding documents, the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and what? The Federalist Papers. Those 4 documents are the key to understanding America's founding principles and how they work to protect our natural rights, which government is assigned to do. And if government doesn't do its job, we have a right to alter that government or that form.
Yes.
And that's what we have to focus on, altering it. Remember what Obama said. We're gonna fundamentally what? Transform. And that's what Obama, he understood that. But he knew what he was talking about. But I guarantee you most Americans didn't know what he was talking about at the time. I was trying to tell teachers at the time. I was working at Crenshaw High School at the time, right down there at the, in LA. And I was trying to tell them, I said, you know what he really is saying? And they just didn't know. They had no idea. He's saying he wants to change it from what our founders gave us. And they said, oh yeah, those old racists, yeah, so what? That's okay with us. I said, wait a minute. Do you even know what the founders believed or what they said? No, they had no clue. And see, that's where you get them. You've got to go back and train yourself, just as we would train ourselves in martial arts. You say you're in we trained in Shaolin, we trained in all that other stuff. And all that over years, judo, jiu-jitsu, aikido, all of those were my martial arts. Taekwondo.
Did you ever take Muay Thai?
We'll talk about that. But all of those arts, I trained in extensively over the years. My wife will tell you that, at 62, I still do it. I still practice. I don't do the falling that I used to, but woo! I tell you, if I go back and do some of the things that I know now, I probably would train differently, but I train very intensely. So the body can only take so much. So you have to kind of, but then the mind, we can go much further with the mind, intellectually. So now I said, a great warrior would be also very intellectual in his understanding of how to deal with aggressors. Okay, and we've got a lot of aggressors to deal with. All right, so the signers of the Declaration of Independence on behalf of the American people embraced the natural law and compared it to the tyrannical British policies under which they were bullied. The natural law is what they embraced. They compared it to the British laws, to the laws of King George. And they discovered that a revolution was justified. What are we doing in that same vein to discover what policies are justified in resisting? See, the other side calls themselves the resistors, right?
Yeah, and
They steal the language of the founders, but they pervert it. And they call us the racists. Well, they don't call me a racist. I mean, black people can't be racist, you guys. Did you know that?
I don't know. I really don't. I can't answer.
Someone's,
I love that. I
Yeah.
have to say that.
Yeah, but
Anyway.
white supremacy.
that's right.
I have to say that because you ought to know what you ought to see their reaction when I talk to some of my white progressive teachers. I say, well, black people can't be racist, so what am I? My views are like, I'll tell you this quick story. See, this is good. Storytelling is good, right? Isn't that powerful? Well, here's a story for you. I got thousands. Oh man, this story is so funny. I was at one of my previous schools. I'm not going to mention all the names of schools. I don't want to do that because some of you guys are pretty tough. My friend Arthur, he'll be calling up the school. He'll be out there. I don't want to do that.
Jeez,
I know
yes.
Arthur. You just may do that.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, one of the schools I was at, the teachers, they were excited to have me. Okay, and so a teacher says, "Oh, great, you can speak. What do you want to do? I mean, what do you like? What is your subject?" I said, "Well, I like American history. I love it. Oh, great, you can speak to my class." This is a history teacher. She was a actual PhD. Okay, I said that for a reason. She's a PhD.
Uh-oh.
She said, "Oh, you can talk about, okay, great, you can talk about American history, you can come to my class anytime and, you can do a presentation." Then she asked me, "What's your philosophy?" She asked me that. She said, "What is your philosophy of government?" That's how she asked me. And my wife will tell you, you never asked me that question. And I said, well, my philosophy of government is in the Declaration of Independence. And I just said it just like that. It is. This is my textbook. And she said, and I just should have seen, you should have seen it. She just went a 180-degree turn on me. She said, "What? You like those racist white founders?" And she was Filipino.
She said like that, racist
Yeah,
white.
racist white founders? You like those? I mean, you agree with them? And I said, yeah, why not? So she went on, and see, once again, first thing I asked her, why not? I didn't argue with her. I didn't make, see, let me give you guys this tip. Whenever you can make an assertion, frame it as a question. Arthur's good at this. I've seen him do it. But frame it as a question. When you're interviewing people or talking to people on the left, ask them a question. Please try not to make assertions with them, because all that does is just create friction. It creates this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to do this. You need this. Redirect. You see, redirect. It's like that. You got to move it up. When they're coming at me, instead of going this way, I'm going to go this way. You see, and let them go by.
Uh-huh.
Redirect.
Okay.
You see, that's what you need to do. So
Got
as
it.
you do that, then you get to be, you can actually shut them down. You can disarm them. So it's like turning away. The scripture calls it turning away wrath.
Yeah.
A soft answer turns away wrath, but harsh words stir up anger. You see, that's why they, unfortunately, that's why they're angry with Trump all the time, And look, those don't bother me. The tweets, I believe me, guys, that doesn't, it used to, because I'll confess this. Some of you already know. Before the election in 2016, I was at Ted Cruz support, okay, all the way. And I still support Ted Cruz, I love him. He knows how to debate, he knows how to discuss. Trump was not that type of guy. But Trump, here's what I love about Trump, and I'll say this, I say it to all my friends, all my opposition. You know what I like most about Trump? I guess, was he from Queens or is he from Brooklyn?
Manhattan.
Manhattan. The whole point is, I like him because he's tough. He knows how to deal with the bullies. He's more of a, he deals with the bully in a direct way. And that's fine. Because in karate, sometimes you deal with them directly, punch, and sometimes you redirect.
Yeah.
So you don't always redirect. Sometimes you have to, straight out. And that's what Trump does. He's gonna boom, straight out. And I mean, he's like that. He's just
He never redirects.
Yeah, he never redirects. And that's okay. So, but here's my point.
Well, he has, wait, I'm sorry, I'll be really quick.
Go ahead.
He has redirected when he says, I'll give you 1.8 million
Okay.
amnesty if you give me, so he takes their, okay, may I
So he
say?
makes deals.
See how brilliant Arthur is? He's right. And that's what I should.
And it screws them over because they don't
Yes,
want to, yeah.
Right. And see, that kind of throws everybody, even on our side, because we're saying, what? Because remember, he did. He wanted to give him what? 700,000, the 700.
He'll give him the DACA and a little extra, but give me everything else, yeah.
He was willing to do that. He said, I'll sign it, bring it over. But you know, and some people on our side, of course, you know, the never Trumpers, you know, they're upset. So I'm not a never Trumper. I never was a never Trumper. But, because I was always the type of guy who said, if he can prove to me, if I can see what he does, then yes, I'll support him. And me and my wife even said it, we'll vote for him in 2020 without a doubt. So I'm just saying that yes, that is a good point. He redirected there. He also did that same thing in some other things too, other issues as well. But the point is, you can't, redirecting is the best way to go. I redirect most of the time. Sometimes you have to strike. Sometimes when you see an opening, you've got to go right out. And that's what you do in situations that you want to engage them. But this is interesting. In searching, Jesse Lee Peterson made this point. He said, you remember, anybody know Jesse Peterson? Okay. He's the founder and president of BOM, the Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny, referred to such hate crimes. He said, this hatred against Donald Trump and all of us on those who claim, actually, are claiming this in the Constitution. Right. They say we are haters, we are racists, and we are homophobes, we are sexists, we are anything else? Did I leave any xenophobes?
Fascist.
Transphobe, don't forget that one now.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Transphobe.
Oh, so that's a new one? Hey, look,
They never-
letters.
Is that a new word, really?
LGBTQ, whatever.
IPPA, right?
Oh, God.
They're gonna add pedophiles? Yes, they are.
Oh, God.
It is, they're gonna do it. They don't care.
Well, Jesse Peterson made some now he's another guy. He's another straightforward guy. See, I like these guys because, see, again, sometimes you have to be straightforward. Just like sometimes you have to use a firearm, you have to use a gun when it requires greater force to stop the aggressor. A charging rhino, I definitely, when I say a charging rhino, a charging bull, I better use a big enough gun. I'm not gonna be able to use a pea shooter on or a pepper spray. But the whole point is, you're gonna have to use a much bigger gun. So sometimes you have to shoot straight at it. And Jesse Peterson made this point. He said he referred to the hate being promoted by the mainstream media, Hollywood, and hatred against conservative Christian men and women of freedom and law and order. Now, I was going to say the most endangered. I was going to say with everybody else, I think the most endangered species is a white American Christian male. I say that one who is in more danger is the black or Negro American conservative Christian constitutionalist male. We're in more jeopardy, you see? Now that's a very interesting, and the reason I say that is because the enemy is against. Like if Keith is probably experienced it. You go to this meeting where they're all the Marxist blacks, and they're all in their meeting doing their thing. They never criticize, and pardon I'm using this language because I want you guys, you know the reality of it. They talk about white people. They talk about the white man this, the white man that, the white man rules the world, the white man is racist. But then when you ask them a question, you say, which white man are you talking about? They shut down. I say, well, you say all white men are that way? Or just some white men? What about progressive white men that have the idea of the Democrats? Are they different from white men who are Republicans?
Yes, because they think differently.
Yes, they do. So how can you then say they're all racist? Now, if you're saying that white Republican men or Christians are racist and homophobes and all these things, then what about the white Democrats who, in our past history, ran, the KKK
Yeah.
and all the rest of that?
Still do.
And oppressed blacks.
Yeah.
So that's why I put blacks in the endangered species list there. And look what happens to us on immigration. Who's the last man on the totem pole here? I mean, yet they don't seem to care. They're not moved by that. So what moves them? I'll show you what moves them. I called in a radio show. I call this radio show all the time. And it's called the Hutchinson Report. Yeah, Clarence knows. And it's in LA. Earl Lafari Hutchinson, one of the most, this guy is buddies with Maxine Waters. He's a real friend of Maxine.
The crazy black lady.
Yeah, he's really a friend of Maxine. He loves Maxine Waters. They're just buddies. And so she called in, and he was basically on this just past Saturday, yesterday. He was talking about the subject of the subject he was talking about was the gosh, it slipped my mind.
Can white people be rich?
Yeah, that's right. White people raised, because there was a councilman, a black councilman, who actually just recently said that white people are destroying, he said white people, he didn't say white men. White people are destroying, and he probably meant white Americans. See, again, you've got to uncover what they really mean. Are you talking about the United Nations white people, or are you talking about American white people? Most of the time, they're talking about American white people. See, think about that. So it's not really about skin color, it's about ideas. But they just don't want to call it that. So you have to uncover it. Again, you have to redirect, anyway. So he said white people are destroying the world. That's what he said, this councilman. So I said to our Lafari Hutchinson, I said, sir, well, pardon me, but did he get voted in office by all blacks, or were there white people who voted for him? He didn't say anything. See, he was quiet. Again, you know when you have them, when you shut them down, it's very interesting. So I said, are they all whites, all black who voted him in? And do they hold the same ideas and views that I do? Because I always tell him, he knows me, and he knows very much how I think. He said that I'm an incarnate description of the founding fathers today, dark skin.
So,
Thank you.
That's all right. Yeah, I know. I said, you can associate me with Frederick Douglass. That's cool. I tell them like that because I let them know that we're blacks who agree to think the way we do back then. As a matter of fact, the Senate was mostly what? Wasn't it mostly dark-skinned men? The Senate back then in the Reconstruction era. Did you guys know that? In 1861, it was the black Senate that, and in fact, 1866, it was a black Senate that was elected. These were former slaves, but they were elected into office in the Senate. I didn't mean to get off topic, but they got elected. And, anybody else know? Okay.
I was gonna say, are you saying were they, the Senate, you're not talking the
Sure.
United States Senate?
Yeah.
You're talking about.
No, it was the United States Senate.
So you're saying most of the United States Senate,
Senate were
after the Civil War, were.
African Americans, yep, they were black.
African-Americans.
The majority
That's
was
not
black?
true.
Yes.
That's not true.
Okay.
But there
That's
were,
all right, you can check it out.
there were
There were
sizable, were not, there were
about
sizable.
4 or 5. Now, if you want to say that there are state that were the state in the southern states, when they were allowed to right to vote, that there were state senators that had to have what they call black reconstruction, and did do a lot of good, in my opinion, most Republicans did a lot of good. They were in charge of the state senate, like our state legislature, but not the United States Senate. So
Okay. All right,
There
well,
were a lot of representatives, House of Representatives.
okay,
Right. Mostly from the South.
okay, I won't argue that. That's not a really
I don't know the
important.
number.
You know,
you redirected. I love it.
yeah. That's all right. Well, it's not, well, see, again, you have to know where you have to know where your battle's gonna be won. And this is not, even if I would dispute it and we go back and forth, that would just waste time. You know, so yeah, it's all right. We can't, I mean, how do we prove that anyway? But the point is, what I was saying is
Well, we're going
that,
to, but
No, no.
frankly, there is a way to prove it. You go to a US history book, and you would.
Or the internet.
Okay.
Or the internet.
okay.
That's great, but I want to hear
That's-
Keith.
Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
book that, I have a book that said that.
Get
Yeah.
ahold of Pastor David Barton, he knows
Okay.
all about
I
it.
know, that's what I was referring to. He does all that.
Okay.
That's all right. I don't want to break that out. That's not important. It's not necessary right now. The point is that, okay, there were blacks in the Senate.
Yeah.
And blacks,
Rebels.
yeah, blacks, rebels, and they were in the Senate. They were responsible partly for the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment passing.
Yes.
They were Republicans. None of them were Democrats.
No.
So my point is,
Abolish slavery.
my point is, when I talk to blacks in the communities, and I tell them this, and I say, see, they say, well, the Constitution wasn't meant for us. You know, it wasn't written for us, but they didn't have us in mind. Well, wait a minute, whether they had us in mind or not, see, this again, it's kind of like that argument about, you know, whether they're all black or half black or some of them are black, you know, it doesn't matter, that's not important. But what's important is that the fact that, to me, if one black person was free and during the time of slavery, or one black person had slaves, which is true,
Yeah.
that's true, then to me, that brings a question in my mind
Yes.
that maybe I need to look at why this was the case. Why is it that some people were slaves and some weren't? Why is it that some people were senators or some people were in office? Some people were voting. Blacks were voting during this founding, even during the time that slavery was at its strongest. Why is that? See, so I looked into it as best I could. And I thought, and I said, it's interesting because there must be something more than what we're getting out. And I have discovered that God is in control of this whole thing. Now, I don't assume that everybody, everywhere I go and I speak like this, I don't assume that everybody's a Christian or everybody's, whatever your religion is or beliefs. Because I talk to atheists. I know one atheist woman, I won't say her name, but she's an atheist and she's on our side. I mean, when I say on our side, she's, you know, she calls herself a conservative, you know, Constitution and all that stuff, but she's an atheist. I don't know how that can be, but that's okay, because I get along with even atheists and people that don't. And the thing I want to share is that what I do is I bring the information to the table. You do the research yourself. You check it out, you see. I could be wrong, and I don't want to, it's not good to make general statements, which I probably shouldn't have said with the old blacks and so forth. But it's good to know that the Creator being in charge, as God is in charge, that means that there's always somebody who slips through. It's kind of like Harriet Tubman, you know, when the Underground Railroad, some blacks did get through and get their freedom. So you have to understand that there is a divine hand at work in the founding of our nation and in the continuance and preservation of our nation. That goes right back to what I said earlier, that we don't have to win with a majority. It doesn't take a majority to win, but a constant minority. We have to constantly keep these fundamental principles in their minds, in their hearts, keep them before they're in our mouths, in our ears. We've got to keep speaking about them, speaking about them, speaking about them. How much do we do that on our side? That's the only thing that bothers me. We don't talk about these things. You know, this is great. I appreciate you guys having me here, because all of this stuff is just bound inside me and I want to get it out. But it's hard to get it out. So, of course, is I've been going to some of those meetings, the city council meetings, you know, concerning the, you know, immigration, you know, the SB 54 and so forth. And I am very appreciative of the opportunity to do that. So I go there and I give them a little history lesson each time. And I think that all of us could do something like that. I want to encourage you to study up, hone up on this stuff. You study it for yourselves. You know, don't just take my word for it. Obviously, you shouldn't take my word for it. You should study to show yourself approved, a workman that doesn't need to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. And that's what we have to do, because otherwise, who will fill in the gap? Maxine Waters.
Yep.
When she says, Maxine says, God is on our side.
She doesn't even believe in God.
Well, see, Pelosi says God is on her side.
Yeah.
See? Why is it that nobody on our side ever says that? But I will give it to Jeff Sessions for saying that. One time when he made the statement, when he talked about Romans 13.
That's right.
Romans 13. Jeff Sessions, no matter what people say about him, you know, a lot of my friends.
Sessions.
Yeah. a lot of my friends are mad at Sessions, you know, they say, oh, he recused himself, all this stuff, so we need to get rid of him. But nah, I like Jeff Sessions because he did something great. What did he do with in Alabama? Wasn't he the only one to prosecute it?
He bankrupted the case.
But yet, again.
But he's a racist.
What? Yeah, they say he's a racist, yeah. But see, that's what I mean. But wait, I tell black community, I say, wait a minute. He prosecuted a guy for a KKK member for killing a black man. And you're calling him a racist?
Yeah.
But you see, this is what they do. So you have to have this information, this knowledge, and you put it out there. I wanted to share this with you because it's important. I have it all. This is Councilwoman Maxine Waters. You guys may have heard this. This is this is a different one here. I want to read it. Carlton Metropolis Council Member Gerald Byrd. Interesting, his last name is Byrd. Anyway, he's a black man. You know, he's a Negro. You know, I miss that word. I miss that word. I like Negro. You guys can call me a Negro. That's all right.
I just say black American.
No, but look, most of you guys are as old as I am. Some of you guys are.
No.
But you remember the days. You know, we were Negroes. I put on there Negro. So what? You know, the N-word.
What are they gonna do? Call you racist against yourself?
Yeah. The kids always, you know, they don't want to say it. I say, well, you guys use the N-word all the time.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, that's not right, man.
It's like the kid who threw the drink in the face of the other kid who was sitting down, and the first thing I'm looking at to see if this kid was black, because he used the N-word. He said,
Wait, wasn't that back east somewhere where the teenagers were
Yes.
sitting?
Keno.
And this guy,
Yeah,
Keno?
yeah,
I saw that.
Yeah, and took his hat.
That was in Texas.
Took his hat.
Yeah, he took his Trump hat, and he walks away. He says, you N-word, and then he says,
Shit.
Yeah, to a white kid.
I guess, yeah. So, see, this again, you use the Columbo tactic. I say Columbo tactic, but use Socratic methods. It's Socrates, he did the same thing. You know, for those less intellectuals, just call it Columbo tactic. Well, of course, a lot of people don't know what Columbo was either. Use Aikido, redirect. Anyway, I tell them that. I said, okay, so
Every
this
Sunday at
guy.
7 o'clock.
So this guy has refused to apologize concerning a controversial Facebook post. He shared it in early June. Byrd, a Democrat of African descent, posted a picture of a black man and a Native American, the two that they love to, you know, the black man and a Native American, with the phrases, the genocide of one race, referring to the Native American, the enslavement of another one, referring to the African slave, imposed over the picture. That's what he had on his Facebook page. He captioned it, "The folks in the picture are similar. The white man has and is destroying the world." Has and is destroying the world.
You know, the Native Americans on the East Coast loved the Constitution. A lot of the Constitution came through there.
Of course. Well, in the Article 1 of the Constitution, Native Americans have been excluded, you know, most Indians, not all, but part of them have been excluded from the Constitution. In other words, they are not held to the Constitution, they have a separate nation. They are a separate nation.
One thing I do to a Negro, I ask them, what is your party affiliation? And if they say they're a Democrat, I says, well, do you know that they're the ones responsible for slavery? Why are you a Democrat?
Yeah.
Why are you supporting the Democratic Party? You should be against them because of what they've done to your people.
Okay.
And they don't believe it.
That's true. They just
They don't believe it.
They don't believe
But
it.
you learned early. You learned early on.
So he
Your
goes
mom and dad
on,
taught you early. Yeah.
So he says they're destroying, and then again, as expected, the post went viral, and was a major topic on the progressive radio show called Hutchinson Report. And he should. How would one confront such a situation? Well, this is what I did. I responded by calling the show. I got through the show, And I repeated to him what the man had said, that the white man is destroying the world. And then he asked me the question, he says, well, Keith, because he knows what I represent. Every time he always does, isn't that right, Clarence? Every time he says, well, this is my friend Keith, you know, this is what he is. He's a
Yeah,
Trump supporter,
Brandon,
he's a Republican,
yes, the
he's this
Democrats
and that.
started slavery.
So,
They
after he does all
maintained
that,
it.
he goes into that, he asked me, do you think that all whites are racist? I said, all whites are racist? Well, and so I pointed out to him, I said, well, think of it this way. Progressive Democrat whites are pretty much racist. Yes, so I told him, and notice how I did that. Because I didn't disagree with him that white people could be possibly racist. I just said, consider the white people who are racist are generally white people on the Democrat side who are progressive. And I added that in on purpose, you know, because he's a progressive, and he proudly says, he's a proud progressive, and he's a black man, he's a Negro. So he proudly says that he is progressive. And I did that to sort of shock him, and it did, because he didn't know exactly how he'd respond back. But then I said, okay, so these are the racists, these guys who are progressive, and it started basically with Alexander Stevens in 1861. He was the vice president of the Confederacy, and he said that we would have, you know, he made quite a statement against the founding fathers, you know, and he said that they were wrong. And he said that our nation is founded, you know, this Confederacy is founded on the opposite of the founding fathers, that all men are created equal. He was very bold in saying that back then. Wow. So I said, and then he says, wow. And he didn't know exactly how to respond to that. He says, well, all right, Keith, well, we know, you know, this is, he said, we know how Jefferson was, and he tried to go with Jefferson and the women and that he was with, or black slaves that he slept with or something. And so I would say, well, if Jefferson slept with black slave women, and if he had children by them, how could he be a racist? Wouldn't he be afraid that his DNA would be corrupted, that the white race would be corrupted by sleeping with a black woman who was a slave, an inferior, you know, race? Wow, wouldn't that sort of corrupt and pervert the DNA of the whites? Why would he, I mean, a man of his intellect, why would he think that, possibly? And so, you know, again, no answer. See, they don't have answers to these things. So that's why I'm saying, I mean, and I don't know of the validity. Again, there's certain things in history I don't think are important when I say, because when you study history, you know, some things are important more than others. And to me, it doesn't matter who Jefferson slept with or who any of the other founders slept with to make, you know, an offspring of people sleeping with slaves. But I want to make that, I pointed that out. I said, well, would a racist sleep with you know, an inferior, you know, species? I mean, would he do that? So those are things that, you know, you can bring to bear, you know, when you're talking to people. And I think you have to make it more of an intellectual argument, and it's very important to do so. I also can bring in the spiritual aspects. You know, I always bring that in the Bible, and I do it in an indirect way because, you know, like for example, Maxine Waters, we'll go back to her. Maxine Waters, when I said, when she talked about, you know, when Maxine said that Trump was a racist, and she pointed out Jeff Sessions as being, you know, that God is on their side concerning immigration. Well, again, let me get this one for you. You'll like this one. I hope you guys are staying with me on this. These are notes that I make, and I put together pieces and excerpts, sort of like teaching moments, and I put it on Facebook. You guys have seen my posts. I post it on Facebook. Sometimes it's easier to write than to speak it out, because writing it, you know, you can sit down and actually think about it. The American people declared their independence from Obama-era tyranny with the election of Donald Trump. But progressive Democrats are no more willing to accept this reality than they were the progressive Confederate forefathers who resisted Lincoln. It's kind of like Lincoln all over again, the Civil War. For example, Maxine Waters of California, the face of the anti-Trump resistance, that's what she called it, openly called on her supporters to harass. See, there you go. Harass. If that isn't a word that involves physical harassment, as well as
I was
verbal.
physically harassed.
Yes,
Twice.
to harass, and she just
Two
claims
times.
that she didn't encourage violence, but, what do you think harass is? You're gonna end up doing some violence to
Yeah.
somebody. So, to harass them because there's zero tolerance policy on illegal immigration, which mandates that the criminal prosecution of any individual who enters the United States illegally. So the criminal prosecution, now, notice how they say that. Make them a criminal. Well, they are. If you come over the first time, what is it? Your first time, that's a misdemeanor. If you come over the second time, that's a felony. Okay, but they are crimes. When you enter into a society, this is how I respond to it. Use the laws of nature. That is one of the 4 principles of the Declaration that I usually talk about. Natural law, human equality, self-government, reasonable force. Natural law, use that argument. You have to study this and actually develop a way to say it yourself. But in that situation, using the natural law principle with immigration, when you enter into a society, you first of all have the right to migrate wherever you want. I have the right to migrate and go wherever I want, but I don't have the right to enter into someone else's property anytime I want. I can't just come over to your house or your property, walk into your fence or yard, and pitch a tent and say, I'm here. I don't have that right. It's the same with international law. It's the same with the United States, a nation that is sovereign, based on Article 2 of the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, when it talks about the law of nations. The law of nations is a phrase in the Constitution. The law of nations is the laws of nature applied to nations. And that was from Vital, the French philosopher. Vital was the one who Benjamin Franklin honored and respected greatly when he wrote about the law of nations, okay? So when he wrote about that, also the founders adopted that same language, the law of nations. It was simply the laws of nature applied to nations. You have no right to enter into another country on their territory and under their jurisdiction without permission. It's as simple as that, okay? That's a natural law principle, okay? So there you go with that natural law. And a lot of my kids, the kids that I work with, there he goes again with natural law. And that's what I call the kids. We always talk about the laws of nature. It happens so that the kids, whenever they see me in the hallways, they always say the laws of nature are advancing, and that's what I say in the hallways as they're walking. So the laws of nature are advancing, kids. The laws of nature are advancing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the laws of nature are advancing. So
Yep.
the consequences are there, whether you agree with it or not. Consequences will be had. So I'm telling them this all the time, every time I see them, and it's really having an effect because these kids are starting to repeat it back. Even my niece, right, Elizabeth? Ashley and Amber, 7 and 8 years old. They'll tell you a little bit about the laws of nature if you ask them. If you see my little 8-year-old niece, Ashley, and you said to her, Ashley, what are the laws of nature? And she'll say, oh, it comes from God, like that. So this is what the founders said, and Jefferson meant. All right, my wife is looking at her watch. How am I doing on that?
You're doing fine.
Okay, so the laws of nature, I don't want to get everybody and put them to sleep here, but the laws of nature, they came up with 28 or 27 grievances in the Declaration of Independence. Isn't that interesting that there are 27 grievances in the Declaration and 27 in the Bill of Rights? 27 amendments in the Bill of Rights. Isn't that interesting? I don't know, that's interesting. Because when you read those, you can see that was really the Declaration, or the Bill of Rights is a part of the Declaration. It's talking about the rights of men, especially the 9th Amendment. Look at the 9th Amendment real quickly. Let me see, I have it. Let me see.
Yes.
These are, we're just having a candid talk. You guys can always comment or question or anything you want to say. I just want to be able to address to you. Hopefully you're getting something out of this. Yes, look at the 9th Amendment. The right of the people, no, sorry. Okay, Ninth Amendment. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights.
Unalienable
Yes.
rights.
Certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So those other rights retained by the people are in the Declaration of Independence. Those rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, property, possessing lands, property, which is exactly what the government is trying to take away. We know this because of the 16th Amendment. Unfortunately, that's why another reason I think that it's so important to hold these truths. It's hold to the Declaration and the laws of nature as the basis for the Constitution.
Yes.
Because they can now take the Constitution out of context as well. They gave us gay marriage, called it constitutional. They gave us Roe v. Wade, called it constitutional.
It's not part of the Constitution, no.
I know, no, but I mean, that's what they're saying, but that's, the way they think of it.
Yeah.
They actually talk about Roe v. Wade as if it's a natural right, an inalienable right, that it can't be taken away. Isn't that
The right to
true?
murder a baby.
Yeah, but isn't that pretty much what they are
It's a crime.
saying? I mean, that's what they think.
Stare decisis.
They call it settled law.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they call it law of the land.
Yeah, a woman's right to choose, or a woman's right to do what she wants with her body, or reproductive rights. Well, if that's the case, then the life that she has in her, does that life have any meaning? Does that person
It does.
have a right to reproductive rights, to choose? And since it can't choose for itself, we have to protect that right, that life. And that's what government does for the innocent. That's part of Romans 13. So, anyway, I don't want to go on too much longer. I haven't really kept up with the time, but I want to see if there's anybody who wants to ask me any questions about it. There is one other story I could tell you about. This is a story that happened to me at the school that I'm at now, that I work presently. I'll be back there, I guess, in August, if they'll have me back, we'll see. But anyway, I had a clash with the principal. Now, when I say clash, I don't mean, I don't do this with people. That's not my style. You guys know me. You've seen how I work. You've seen how I operate. Usually when I go to those really highly emotional meetings and things, you just see me sitting there. I just want you to know, it's not that I'm, intimidated by them. I just want you to know I have a different way of dealing with them, okay? You know how some of those things go. But anyway, this school that I'm presently working, I used to do a program, not at this school, but it was another school. I have to say this to say this. This is my final closing story. But I used to teach self-defense. I used to teach them martial arts. We would do those things. And in the school, I was able to do that. They were very open-minded to it at the time. But at this particular school, they say, oh, you have to work with it through an organization. You can't make contact with the kids. You can't touch the kids. You can't do this and that. Oh my gosh. I've been doing martial arts with kids since 1991.
Wow.
But now I'm told I can't touch the kids. I can't do any of this stuff. And, with all of the pedophiling and child molesting stuff that's going on, even in the school,
It all has to do with 9/11 too.
yeah, but I wonder how many of those people think the way I do. Anyway, again, so this school, one day I was, see, I don't want to tell that one, I'll tell this one. I was, I got several of them. No, this is another one. But this story is important because this deals with the declaration principle of reasonable force. Again, there are 4 of them that I cite in the Declaration that I focus on. Natural law, human equality, meaning equality, self-government,
Yes.
and reasonable force. This one deals with reasonable force. A young man walked in, he was about 20 years old, walked into the school campus. And this was during all the shootings and stuff.
Wow.
Well, not, shootings at other schools.
Right,
Not our
yeah,
school. We
yeah.
didn't have a shooting. But anyway, this guy walks in and he comes into the office. I wasn't there, but I was on the campus. And I heard on the radio, we have an intruder. We have a person who is trespassing. So they called school police on the radio. School police didn't show up, not for a while, they weren't there. So, and that happens frequently,
Yeah.
the police are not always there. But anyway, so he was there and I was there. There were about 2 or 3 other campus aides, that's what they call us. And so I get to the scene first. I was the first to arrive on the scene. It was right in the office. And I said, where is he? So they said, he went into the restaurant. And I said, well, he wanted to see a teacher, apparently visit a teacher, but they said, you can't do that during school hours when the teacher's teaching. So anyway, he goes into the restroom in the office. And so I go over to the restroom, I knock on the door. First I told the principal, so she's with me, walking with me. I said, you okay, sir? And again, no answer. You okay? Hey. So the principal's standing over a few feet away, and she's looking. I said, he doesn't answer. So then I take my key, and I don't know how this guy got in because you have to open it with a key. But anyway, he was in there. So I opened the door, and as soon as I opened the door, I'm standing in the door like this with my arm, like this, holding the door open. The door shuts this way. See, and so I stood in the doorway, held my arm here, and then the guy, I said, hey, you okay, man? I'm just trying to get your attention, see if you're all right. He was in the stall. All of a sudden, the door, he bursts out of the stall. The door opens, bang, almost hits me, but I move out of the way. And so he then confronts me, he says, hey, what's wrong with you, man? He says, what's wrong with you? So he was a Hispanic guy, I'm a Hispanic guy. And he says, what's wrong with you? I will F you up. Okay?
Oh, that's a threat.
Yeah, I will F you up. And so I said, no, I'm just trying to see how you're doing. And my hand is like this because of the door. I'm trying to hold the door open. And so at this point, the principal, she sees that and she says, come out. She says, Keith, come out. And I'm standing here, the guy is right there in my face, about this far away. He's about from here to that chair. And I'm standing like this. She says, come on out, come on out. And at this point I hear her, but my instinct is saying, no, because I don't know what he's gonna do if I back up and come out. So I just stood there in the door. His backpack was in there as well, and we don't know what was in it. I didn't know, but I was aware. I just kept a visual on it. I wanted to see it.
Yes.
So I wasn't about to come out and let the door close with him behind the door, because I don't know. So anyway, I just stood there, and suddenly he just lunged at me. He lunged at me, and as he did that, I reacted and extended my arm and stopped him, just that way. And as my face was right next to his face, I stopped him, waiting for the next move. He stopped, I stopped, and then at that point, I then backed off because the police, we had a detective there. He was visiting the police officer, and he came in. And at that point, he had on the side, he had plain clothes. So at that point, he came, and the guy came out. He just walked out. They escorted him out. After that, I get called to the office. The principal says, Keith, you countermanded my order. I told you to stand down, to come back. I said, ma'am, with all due respect, I felt threatened because I was in the door. He was in front of me. I don't know what he was going to do. I had no idea. So I couldn't back off, and consider myself safe. So I did that to protect myself and to protect her. Anyway, so they called me. I had a meeting with the union, my union representative, and I sat with my union representative and her and the vice principal. Man, they tried to lay it on me. My union representative, he was kind of wimpy. But the point is, I told him, I said, no, I wasn't going to back down. I said, if I lose my job over it, well, I'll take it from there. But I wasn't going to back down. I didn't have to. I could stand my ground. That is a law. And I told him that I know the law. The law is, even in California, you have the right to stand your ground. There is a stand your ground law, sort of indirectly in California. Okay, I did the research, it's all there. So you have the right to stand your ground if you feel that you are threatened, with possible injury. So I told them that. And basically, they said, okay, well, they took it from there. Then my union person told me, we'll contact you later for a sit-down meeting with the other union people or whatever, the high wigs. So what I did was I took the liberty of going to the school board, a school board meeting. I spoke to the operations manager, one of the operations managers. I told her my story and I gave her my report. I haven't heard from him. That was back in, I don't know, about 3-4 months ago. Haven't heard from him since. Haven't heard from him since. So,
That's what happens.
yeah, exactly. So I don't know what they're gonna say.
There's no harm, no foul.
No, no harm, you know, what they could easily do, and I don't expect it, but, you know, what they could do is they could just move me to another school or something like that. They probably, I mean, that's been happening to me for years. I've been getting moved to another school. Yeah, so, because, you know, one kid reported me to the principal at another school because he was gay, and he said that I offended him. Because another kid, we were having a conversation at lunchtime, and another kid was talking to me directly. He wasn't even in the conversation. But another kid was asking me, "Mister, what do you think of gay and all this stuff?" Because the kids are asking me that all the time. And you know what I tell them? Same thing. I said, well, because it's not natural, not according to natural law, I'm not in favor of the homosexual lifestyle or marriage. And I'll never agree to it because it's contrary to natural law. And I adhere
That's
to
a
the
great
laws
response.
of nature. And that's what I told the kids.
That's a
I
great
follow the
response.
Declaration, brother. See, again, the laws of nature. And even a couple of girls asked me that one time, and I said, you know, I'm not against you. I like you. You're nice girls. But I'm against what you might do. Now, there's a difference there. See, again, if I go and rob a liquor store, it doesn't mean you hate me. If I go and rob somebody, it doesn't mean that I personally am so bad, but because I chose to do a thing that was illegal at the time. But I may not all necessarily be bad. Now, the liberals do this all the time because they're always saying that a lot of people in prison shouldn't be there.
That's right.
Well, why should we? Why should we let these, you know, what we did with the recent voting to decriminalize our
Yeah.
system? But
I have a question, yeah. You were talking about 4 different things, and I get absolved.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, and I didn't write it down. Natural law, reasonable force, what?
Yeah, natural law, the first principle is natural law, that's in the first paragraph. Second paragraph starts off with we hold these truths, be it, that's, I call that human equality, in other words, equality. And the third principle is self-government, by the consent of the governed,
Okay.
that's self-government. And the fourth principle is reasonable force. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is a right of the people to alter and abolish it.
So these are 4 paragraphs in
Yeah, in the Declaration. There are 4 principles those are the 4 principles that I teach and talk about, and I associate and try to, you know, make it relevant to each conversation. Yes, sir.
I think you bring up a good way of saying to people, I believe in natural law.
Uh-huh.
Because we're in a world where people love nature in a way, but they love it to an extreme.
Yes.
And they want to be natural with things and everything. But it becomes a teaching moment when you say, I follow natural law.
Yes.
You can actually kind of divert them to see how nature really is.
Yes,
And
that's
the
right.
principles that are there.
Yeah, just like the environment. When we talk about environmentalism, I always say, a teacher asked me, he says, what do you think of global warming? I said, oh, yeah, the planet's always, we got warm, we got summer, winter, spring, how does it go? Winter, summer, spring, fall.
Wow.
Okay, so I believe, yeah, global, yeah, it's warm in the summer, it's cold in the summer. I should let you know what she said. She said, hold your thought. She said, you know what I mean. She got upset because she knew what and I knew what she meant. Yeah, she got upset when they said, well, as far as global warming, well, sure, I agree that it is global warming.
Cyclical.
But I said, what can we do about it? She was shut down again. Redirect.
What is number 3 again?
Oh, the self-government.
Self-government.
Yeah, self-government is by the consent of the governed. Governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Yes, sir.
I saw the union ruling. I was a member of local union 721 in Los Angeles. When I needed their help, I was forgotten and suffered many years. I was particularly cruel of the union was shortly before my employer illegally terminated my employment. The union mailed me a bill saying I had to pay them because the union dues were coming out of my, they weren't coming out of my paycheck. I did not pay them. Shortly after the union mailed me a bill, the union mailed me a letter saying they couldn't represent me anymore because my employment was terminated. Just imagine what it would have been like if I paid the union's bill.
Yeah.
So I don't believe in the union. And could you give any advice about.
Well, I'm gonna leave that open to maybe some other experienced people here, because I belong to, local 99. God, you guys know how
I used
SEIU.
to belong to the Teamsters for 32 years.
Yeah.
I was a shop steward, and then the shop steward for 20 years. And you should have been able to file with the union for them to, you know, to represent you. They got the labor board, which you could have filed to them against the union for not representing you.
Yeah,
The labor board is it's an organization that's for union members to go and complain about the union or the employer. So,
Yeah.
you can, how long has it been since that happened?
Just a few months ago.
Okay, you got 6 months,
I have
to
lawyers
go
working
to the
on
labor
it.
board and file a complaint.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I have lawyers working on it, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Hopefully
That's
it'll
good.
work out.
I hope it works out for you, because, SEIU, God, I hate that union.
Boo.
Yeah.
Boo.
Oh.
Purple shirts.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Purple
We see them
people
all the
eaters.
time.
Yeah.
We went out, they're the ones that helped get Obamacare going, ARP and all that crap. I hate it. But anyway, they were taking money out of my check anyway, so, I was forced to, but now I think that.
Use the Janus decision.
Yes, yes.
That Janus decision gives you authority.
Exactly. So, but again, once again, folks, in long story short, you gotta pick and choose your battles. We can't, I mean, we're just overwhelmed. So we
Yeah,
gotta
I
pick our
know.
battles.
I'm just tired.
Yeah, I try to lead, I try to follow the spirit, I follow where God is directing me, and that is the best way that I can fight the battle, and that means that I must educate. I try to educate. So everything to me is a civics 101 lesson. So I use that as an opportunity to talk to kids and to people, especially the kids. You know, we need to really help this generation. And again, my philosophy is in terms of DACA. You know, these kids, DACA, I look, I'm working with them. They're here, and I have a hunch. Please don't look at me the wrong way on this, but I have a hunch that they're not going anywhere. I really don't think that we're gonna get people.
Where can they go?
Yeah, exactly. So I figure.
Go back.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know,
Go
I know.
home. There's a point of
But again-
disagreement.
But again, guys, I'm just being, all I'm saying is, I'm
That's right.
trying to be practical in the sense that we've gotta educate them. If anything, we've got to educate them, because they're not getting it over there. They're taught to hate America. We've got to turn that around and try to work on that generation. So that's what I'm.
Well, see, the thing is that if they're coming into this country, they need to assimilate.
That's
They
right.
need to learn the language.
Yes, sir.
They need to learn the American way.
Law of nations.
Otherwise, why are they here?
Yes, and that's why I
If
tell
they
you.
can't come to our country and learn everything about our country,
That's right.
salute our flags,
That's right.
respect our president,
Yes?
and obey the law. That's what they have to do, but they're not doing that.
And see, they're not being taught. And again, here's another story. I had to say this one. I was saying the Pledge of Allegiance in the morning at the gate at one of my schools, the one I'm working now. At the gate, and I don't want to tell you guys where you're going. Please don't, don't go over there. I know Arthur, he might do it. And I love
I
Arthur.
promise.
I will.
Yeah, I know you guys would.
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh.
But anyway, I was at the gate,
I
and I opened the
understand.
gate. I'm first there in the morning at 7 o'clock. I opened the gate, and the kids entered. So they're all standing out.
Yes.
And I opened the gate, and I didn't say, now everyone say with me the Pledge of Allegiance. I just started saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I opened the gate, stood in the gate. As the kids passed by, some of them kept walking, and some of them stopped. So I said the Pledge of Allegiance. I held up my flag. And I said the Pledge of Allegiance. And one morning, the principal was walking into the office. What are you doing? Just like that. What are you doing? I said, well, I'm just saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Come to my office. That's what the principal said. I'm telling you the truth. And that's why, and so I went to her office, and then another vice principal's there, and they're sitting there berating me because I said the Pledge of Allegiance. Said, well, that might offend some people. I said, well, if you're offended by the American flag, what are you doing here? I didn't say that that way. Again, you have to pick and choose your battles. I knew where, I worked there, and that's, so what I had to do was I had to use a little, Columbo tactic there, and I said, well, is saying the Pledge of Allegiance offensive unto you? And they didn't like that at all. They couldn't say anything.
I would have asked them, are you an American?
Yeah, really. That would have been, yeah. But again, they've already got me for insubordination. I call the union on me. So that's why I'm saying, so far, everything is cool. I'm still there. I still get along with them, but you gotta pick and choose your battles. So once again, here's, and all, long story short, in conclusion, I think that as we learn these principles for ourselves, learn these principles and really learn how to articulate them. You can only learn this by practice. You know, you're gonna have to practice this. And once you do that, I think that you can make a difference. And those 4 principles I laid down, you'll find them in the Declaration. And you can use those. Here's George Mason. George Mason, one of the, this guy says something very interesting. No free government, nor the blessings of liberty, can be preserved to any people, but by a firm adherence to justice, moderation, temperance, frugality, virtue, and a frequent recurrence to fundamental principles. And by the recognition by all students, all citizens and students, that they have a duty as well as a right, and that such rights cannot be enjoyed save in a society where law is respected and due process is observed.
Yes.
There we go. That's George Mason. So get these principles into you guys, you know. I want to hear you talk more about it. I want to hear you talk like they're a part of your everyday conversation and put them in, make them relative to today. I think that if we do this, it's like Abraham Lincoln said, we readopt the practices and policies that harmonize with the Declaration, we can save the nation. That's how we do it, by readopting these principles and talking about them, articulating them. Especially, you know, if you're running for office, I mean, because you don't hear anybody talking about them. Not on our side. I don't hear them. Maybe you guys do, but that would be great. The president's getting better at it too. I like that.
You see us,
Yeah, he's getting better at saying.
he's doing better in general.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Keith.
Yes, thank you, sir. Here's the taekwondo.
Goodbye, everybody. Brandon, I'll get in touch with you later tonight. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Well, I hope this